Hello and welcome to today's first video series capturing the story of what we're doing in our yoga teacher training school, the holistic education program. And so the idea is that each week I'll have put out a video kind of summarizing what we covered in the content, and hopefully it can just be useful for you, and whether you are a yoga teacher, a yoga student, or just any sort of holistic educator around breathing exercises, meditation, sound journeys, ecstatic dance, all those sorts of things. So for this first week, the important lessons that we covered revolved around learning the model of who we are in the whole self. And in this model, we recognize that there's all these different aspects of ourself that we want to learn to connect with our spiritual dimension, the dimension of our life where we're giving meaning to our thoughts and our feelings, and our life circumstances. There's the mental level of what thought patterns do we have running out, what is our current thinking about our life circumstances, feeling how our thoughts and feelings related, and what is it that I'm feeling, and what is that revealing to me about what's happening in my body and in my mind and in my life. We also just have the physical level. What physical sensations am I experiencing? Do I feel comfortable? Am I having pain? Are there things that I need to attend to physically? And then beyond that is what I like to call embodiment. These are the ways that we actually take action in our life, the way we're actually living in our life. So, based upon your thoughts and your feelings and the meaning you're making, what are you actually taking action on and living, and are there changes that you want to make? And lastly is relational. There's a relational dimension of ourself that's in relationship to our family, our children, our parents, our brothers and sisters, our cousins, with our friends, close friends, best friends, as well as acquaintances, people that we don't really know but we are meeting occasionally, and also with work, and just in terms of like what our relationships like at work, and then in all those different relational categories, how do they show up with how we're acting? How do they affect our physical body? How do they affect our feelings? How do they affect our mind? And most importantly, how do we create meaning out of all this in our spiritual dimension? So that's the whole model, the holistic model of self that we were working on this last week. And we're using that to then look at our program, and how do we create a program that affects these many dimensions of self and draws it out. And so each week we learn that we're going to be doing a variety of holistic education practices, everything from philosophy to a variety of different asanas and hatha yoga and physical practice, breathing exercises, guided meditation, sound journeys, personal sadhana journals where we're journaling and reflecting, and discussion. So all those things are different elements of our holistic practice that every single week we'll be doing, but every week we'll be focusing on specific elements. So these different practices that we do, the idea is that they also help us to connect with our whole self and these different levels of self. And when we have an experience and we notice something's coming up, say a thought, I want to allow that space with the journaling and discussion for us to really think, what is it that's coming up here? What meaning does that have to my life? What is that trying to reveal to me? And then in discussing that with the group, to hold a safe space where we can all live with greater truth of ourselves. And I think so often we have to live a different truth than what is our own truth. We have to, live based on the norms or what others are doing. So trying to create a program and a safe space where we can really bring our full self out hopefully that is deeply meaningful and transformational. So, we have that whole self model, we have those holistic practices, we see how those affect and how we're going to be doing that every week. And then this week we focus specifically on journaling. And, our journaling practice is something, like I said, that we're going to be doing each week. And there's a variety of ways that you can journal. And when we started going into the journaling practice, we discussed what are the variety of things that we already do in journaling. Everything from venting about difficult emotions to processing them and our life circumstances, time to process, to reflect. Sometimes that can mean, planning for the future. Other times it can mean letting go of stuff. Sometimes it can feel like gratitude and remembering what things are you grateful for, to shift your mind towards that. And, within that, there's also setting new intentions. And so we just covered how with journaling, there's a variety of things that we can do. And, everyone has a different aspect of journaling that will speak to them based on what's going on in their life. So it's not like we need to be able to do all of these every single time we sit down and journal, but just based on where we're at, if we can know the general layout of what sort of things you can do while journaling, then when we sit down to journal each week, we'll say, okay, these are the sorts of things that I could do while journaling. Maybe when I read one of those, it prompts, I've been having this relational thing going on in my life, and I want to reflect on how that's making me feel and what thoughts I'm having about it, and how it's making me feel in my body, and what kind of meaning do I want to give out to all of that, and is there some new way I want to embody or take action in my life? So that's kind of how our journaling fits then into our our model of holistic practices and the whole holistic model of self. So each week we'll be doing that, and this last week we just did an introduction to it and did a free writing activity where we just put pen to paper and wrote as much as we could, and then tried to follow a prompt based on the different sort of things you can do with journaling. And so think about it in light of our whole self model. And then for the very end of the day, after we finished all those activities, we then went into co-creating this program together. And I think so often when we think about educational experiences, the model for learning is, there's a teacher, there's the information, and there's the student. And it's about the teacher telling the information to the student. It's just one unidirectional thing going to the student. But then there's some learning where the student and the teacher actually have some back and forth, where there's discussion. And then this is important because you're actually able to reflect on the topics. But even that is limited, because even if we're just discussing and the topics are still separate from us, there's a problem. So instead of seeing these things in different areas, we want to put the student and the teacher next to each other with the information and see, where do these three things intersect? Where does the intention of the teacher, the intention of the student, and the information all come together in a way where the learning can be deeply meaningful for all parties? So with this program, we're looking to co-create our experience, knowing that the energy you give is going to co-create the experience of the program, and just reminding them in the way that you show up every week is going to affect it. So when we create a shared agreement, or a heart agreement, as I like to call it, basically what we're doing is we're coming up with, what sort of experiences do we want to have together? How do we want to show up? And we generated a nice document about how we want to communicate in a respectful, open, honest, caring, and safe way, that it's confidential. We talked about how to have digital communication beyond the group, and we're going to be using Slack as a digital platform with different threads. And then we went over, just really coming up with what's important for everyone, around food. What's our food going to look like? What time we're going to start with the program each week. And then we discussed each week what topics we're going to do and what it'll look like. And so we just went through the whole syllabus, and as an overview, we went over what days we were on and off, but we learned about how this program is going to follow the main paths of yoga. We learned about how it's the main paths of yoga. We have our Jnana Yoga, the yoga of philosophy and the minds. We have Hatha Yoga, which is the physical body practice of yoga. We have Raja Yoga, which is the whole system of yoga, but it especially focuses on the meditation, the kind of the mental, spiritual, making meaning dimension. We discussed Nada Yoga, the yoga of healing power of sound vibration. Bhakti Yoga, the yoga of devotion, of emotion, of a very spiritually devoted path. And last but not least, we talked about Karma Yoga, the yoga of action and service. So while these are all the main paths of yoga, we're also going to have these as the structure for our program. So we'll start with Jnana Yoga, learning about holistic education, yoga philosophy, yoga lifestyle practices. Then we'll go right into Hatha Yoga and anatomy, learning about the body and the poses and getting intensive into that. Then we'll go into Raja Yoga and meditation and pranayama practices, and learning about different techniques of breathing exercises within that, and mindfulness. We're going to have some mindfulness that's going to be weaved in there for several weeks as our meditation practice. And then we'll even go to Nada Yoga, where we'll be learning about sound vibration and sound meditation, and that is a healing gateway. And then from there, we're going to go more into Karma Yoga, the yoga of action and service in terms of teaching methods and learning about how to teach a class and create a space for students to feel invited into the learning journey. And that'll be kind of the main path we follow. Bhakti Yoga we'll get into a little bit as well when we do Nada Yoga, the sound vibration, and it'll be interspersed throughout. This is kind of the path we laid forward with this program. This is what we were given this first week. And I hope that whether you were at the program or someone just watching, that this can give some framework and understanding of how you can start a yoga school and creating and building an intentional community of it. And I hope that you have had a wonderful time learning about, just sort of, this program in terms of what we did, learning about the whole model of self, learning about how we're going to engage that self with holistic practices, some of those practices being things like journaling, and recognizing that we're co-creating this program with our heart agreement, with our energy that we bring. So this has been our lesson for today, and hope you enjoyed and have a beautiful day. Namaste.